week, guys, the name on the marquee has got to be Ilia Topuria, who this past weekend at the ViStar Veterans Memorial Arena in Jacksonville, Florida, beat the brakes off of Josh Emmett in the main event of UFC Fight Night, Topuria versus Emmett. Emmett survived to the scorecards. The scorecards read 50-44, 50-42, and a 49-45, all in favor of the rising superstar from Spain, Ilia Topuria. Mark, start us off. Give us your take and your thoughts of this very, very dominant performance by Mr. Topuria. Cheers.
This performance from Ilia Topuria was so good and was such a beautiful display of skill level that it took Ilia Topuria from being a guy whose best win was Bryce Mitchell to a guy who people are like unanimously saying, yeah, that guy should probably just fight Volk. Like in one performance. I mean, that's about as simply as you can sum this up. But he beat the shit out of Josh Emmett for 25 minutes. I think we all kind of predicted he would beat the shit out of Josh Emmett, at least somewhat. I don't know if any of us saw the bludgeoning that was. But he dominated him. And it's not just that he's fast or that he's got great boxing or big power or that he is so good defensively, but it's the way that he controls space. All of the space between Topuria and his opponent is his thus far. He controls it. He's like a puppet master in there at times. He's got fantastic footwork. He continually cut Josh Emmett off all fight long. He's so good at stepping in to deliver his shots and then getting his head out of range. Or even better, actually, what he was doing all fight long was him doing a little backslide out of range as Emmett threw, only to counter, kind of pivot away and counter. He caught Josh Emmett a million times that way. His hands are always up next to his head. He blocks most punches, and he just frustrates you because he is so sound defensively and such an intelligent boxer that he is going to land at such a higher rate than you are going to land. And Josh Emmett, if we're being honest, was kind of the perfect opponent because he likes to throw his kind of lunging punches, and it really let Topuria show off because he was able to evade these, and he was just a much cleaner boxer. But he was crushing him. It felt like he was hurting him bad in pretty much every round from round two onward. And props to Josh Emmett. The guy's an absolute animal. He can absorb crazy damage. After round 4, I would say that thing hit the point where I was truly starting to think about whether his corner should have been stopping him from going back out there. But, you know, he didn't cave. He battled the whole way. And it didn't matter because Ilia Topuria was that damn good and that damn dialed in, and he is officially now a very big deal.
Omar, give us your take on the techniques that Topuria was throwing out there that really made the difference and just completely shutting down and pretty much dominating one of the most dangerous strikers in the 145-pound division.
This is the shit that I watch MMA for. These are the type of performances that for me are just extremely memorable. I couldn't really wait to talk about this fight because Topuria did so many things in that fight that I thought were so exceptional. His guard needs to be talked about, and it needs to be appreciated for how effective it is because his guard was tight. You could almost say it was a very like Muay Thai straight up stance, very square stance, and he did a lot of moving forward in that fight, blocked a lot of punches, and I think the reality was, just like Mark said, this fight with Emmett was really tailor-made for Topuria because Emmett chooses to have a fight style that does not account for proper entry. And so without utilizing a jab of like any fucking kind, this man relies on hooks. And so when that happens, you've basically just eliminated one or two punches from an actual arsenal, right? Because even the cross, he wasn't throwing completely straight. He was winging things from like back here all the way forward. And Topuria is a matador. I mean, the Spaniard doesn't even seem like it's a proper name for him. He was a matador. and he was cutting angles just like Mark said. He was popping him on the way out, popping him on the way in. I mean, he put the literal beating on him in round 4 to the point where I believe this is the first official 10-7 that we've gotten in the UFC at this point. And the crazy shit is, well, I believe it is. I don't know if there's another 10-7 officially on record, at least not in modern day MMA. I don't know how the hell they did it back in the day, but it was completely warranted. Absolutely warranted. There were 2 sequences towards the end of that round that were near finishes that with other referees very well might have been finishes. So I was completely fine with the 10-7 scoring for that round. And it was one of the greatest performances, man. And it did. I think everybody was kind of on the same page after the end of that fight. We walked away with, I think, 2 big things on our mind. Did Emmett get beat so badly that retirement shouldn't even come into play? Or did we just realize that Emmett's probably never going to reach gold, even if he does continue to fight, right? I think the way his fight style is right now, I think he's never going to be champion, and he probably will never, beat the elite the way that he's approaching these fights right now. He very well could change his fight style and adapt his fight style to set things up a little bit more proper and be able to land things properly. But until that happens, I think we've seen the ceiling of Josh Emmett. And I think we've seen Ilia Topuria take the fucking glass elevator right the hell up out of the ceiling. Because this man genuinely looks like somebody who could give Volk problems at minimum. Minimum. And he's a real issue when it comes to the idea that he could walk away from that fight with a belt and be one of the guys to legitimately have beaten Volkanovski without, I wonder how that, I wonder how people score the fight. I think if he does beat Volk, I think he beats him decisively. And that's an amazing, amazing prospect.
At this point, I cannot see Volk getting dominated the way that Josh Emmett just did by Topuria. I mean, but
agreed.
The hand speed combined with the power of Topuria is terrifying. But also, to your point, Omar, I love that you said that this is why you watch, man. Took the words right out of my mouth. Like, as a fan, it's these kinds of performances and these kinds of athletes and fighters that make me just tune in to be like, wow. Like, you're watching something pretty special in Topuria, man. Anytime this guy fights now, and this guy's going to be a main event fighter for the rest of his career, pretty much. Or at the very least, we're entering into the prime phase of Topuria's career where, like, he's in main events and he's on marquees from here on out, man. He makes you watch. I mean, he, like, in the same way that, like, a Gaethje, a Poirier, Oliveira, like, you just watch this guy because you know that you're going to see fireworks, and you also know that you're going to see MMA at such a high level that it's just, there's like a beauty to it. It really is. That being said,
For sure.
do you guys agree with the sentiment that off this performance, beating a guy who just fought for an interim belt and beating him so handily, do you see Topuria at this point being next in line for a title shot? Mark, you go first.
It kind of feels like it should be, in all honesty. I know there's some guys above him technically, but like Max is fighting Korean Zombie. If Max wins that fight, are you going to make Topuria fight Max and run the risk of Max winning, and then what do you do? Like, no, why would you go that route? Then the other one, I guess, is Ortega, who's returning, but, like, are you going to do a title eliminator right away there? It kind of, and not to mention Volk and Yair is happening pretty soon. So it kind of just feels like at this point, Topuria makes the most sense as just, you know what? Let's run this Volk and Yair fight. Obviously, if Yair wins, different story. Volk's going to get his rematch. But and then Topuria would maybe have to fight an Ortega or someone. But if Volk wins that fight, it kind of just feels like, you know what? Here we go. Volk and Topuria. Let's book it.
Yeah, man. Omar, any other? You have any differing thoughts?
I mean, the reality is that's kind of where the division's at. There's not really much movement and much differentiating you can get at this point. Topuria has put himself now in the top 5. There's not much room to go up further than what's already on the books. So the reality is we got to wait and see what happens. And like Mark said, if Volk wins, which spoilers, I expect him to win this fight against Rodriguez. As much as I love Yair, I just don't. I think stylistically this is a terrible goddamn matchup. But apart from that, if Volk wins, we're kind of almost at the point now where Izzy is in the middleweight division, right? Where we're kind of recycling guys because we've run through the top of the division. And the worst part about featherweight is that the top of the division fucking has stayed the top of the division. Those dudes don't go away, and they just lose to Volk. So for parity and just to get a guy that genuinely looks like he deserves a title shot, I would also give it to Topuria as well.
Man, oh man. And maybe capitalizing off of the dominance of this win. Almost kind of wish that he found the finish eventually, just to really put that much more of an exclamation point on this win. But man, for a decision win, this was pretty much as dominant as it gets for Topuria. That being said, let's quickly talk about the loser in this contest, Josh Emmett. I think he's in his late 30s. I want to say he's like 36 or 38 or somewhere around there. Omar, let me start with you this time. Looking at the landscape of the featherweight division right now, what do you think is next for Josh Emmett?
38.
Honestly, man, Josh Emmett better not fight for the rest of 2023. I think that's it for him for right now. That man took an ungodly amount of damage. For being honest, the kid should probably stay out for an entire year. To be on the safe side. He took one of the worst beatings we've seen in recent memory. And to be honest, the last one I think we've seen like that was Korean Zombie versus Volkanovski. So I'm not thrilled about the idea of him fighting too soon. And as a result, I don't want to give him a pick because the landscape is bound to change by the time I think he's ready to come back. So I will say Josh Emmett by vacation.
Josh. Mark, what about you?
Yeah, he took some damage against Yair, too, in the prior fight. So I don't disagree with that take. I'm on a similar vein. If we are going to match him up, my concern is let's protect his health a little bit after those two beatings. So I would say maybe give him a wrestler who's trying to come up, someone like a Movsar Evloev or even a Bryce Mitchell, which is probably even less risk of head damage. So, yeah, I would say maybe go that route if he is going to take another fight here.
Okay. All right, well, in the interest of time, let's move on, unless there's anything else you guys want to say about either of these two fantastic combatants.
I do want to point out that Josh Emmett has been suspended indefinitely until he's cleared by a doctor from all the broken things in his face.
The least shocking development of the day.
Dude, poor Josh Emmett, man. Towards the end of this fight, I was like, God, my man took a beating.
Bro, I think it was the end of the second round, he gave this look that I think he knew he was fucked. Like, he knew it.
Yeah, he was just outmatched.
And that was the end of the